Well, hello and welcome to another video by Financial Learning. On today's video, we're going to take a look at Celsius Holdings Company's latest investor presentation. This is not the earnings presentation, but a presentation that was shared the day after earnings at the Consumer Analyst Group of New York conference. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, jumping straight into this presentation. If you'd like to follow along, I will have a link in the description so you can pay a little bit more attention to some of these slides. I will jump through them and just try to highlight the key points. Also, remember there are two presentations that are currently active there. One is going to be for that full year annual report with the Q4 earnings. And then this one is the CAGNY, again, that is Consumer Analyst Group of New York. And this is the conference that they attended the day after they announced those earnings. So first thing I want to stop and talk about is going to be what they highlighted for these specific analysts. They went over four key themes. The first is to continue being a category disruptor. They mentioned that this is driving that functional beverage category with unparalleled innovation capabilities. So we do know that they do have their own beverage packing facility that they purchased just one quarter ago. And then they also just announced this acquisition, this purchase agreement of Alani New, which is expected to close during Q2 of calendar year 25. Second one is going to be large and growing TAM. And they talk about their position for expansion. Now, I'm going to highlight this throughout the presentation, but they do have an international presence. And I think with the Alani New brand, this is going to give them additional opportunity to saturate that international market. The third is this compelling growth strategy. So again, they're looking to reach more people, more places, more often. That is another one of their key phrases that they do discuss quite a bit during that earnings presentation or during that earnings call. But recall, they are talking about the diversity of the different people as well as more places, meaning they are getting into multiple areas. We'll talk a little bit about some of those areas at the very end, as it's not part of this presentation, but it was brought up during the earnings call. So make sure you stick around for that. And then the fourth is strong cash generation profile. So if you are paying attention, they have solid yearly revenues over $1 billion and very nice gross profit margins on their actual sales. We should be looking at some very solid quarters to come. All right, and just to remind you all of Celsius Holdings' global presence, this was actually from one of their previous investor presentations, but they did discuss these specific countries during their earnings call. They are currently in Canada, UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and France. So again, these are all opportunities for Alani New's product line as well to be able to join Celsius internationally. And just to take a look at some of these key metrics they share, this is again Celsius at a glance. Down at a category growth leader, Celsius contributed to 30.3% of all energy drink category growth in year over year for 2024. So again, comparing all the energy drinks, Celsius is definitely leading the pack there. And then they are still number 3 energy drink brand in the US. That is just behind Red Bull and Monster. And they have a total market share of 11.8% for the US, and this is tracked amongst all the other sales channels. They had over 241,000 outlets across the United States. We're going to talk about another couple of their outlets at the very end again, so make sure you're paying attention for that. I'll put chapters in here so you can kind of jump along to find that if you want. And then moving over to the right-hand side, let's talk a little bit about some of those financials. So revenue, I mentioned over $1 billion, specifically $1.36 billion is their 2024 revenue amount. Gross margin sitting at above 50% at 50.2%. Net income, so after COGS and everything, is $145 million. And then there are some operational costs as well, some G&A and other items there, payroll. So after all that, they still have a net income of $145 million for the year. The next one is going to be that adjusted EBITDA at $256 million and the adjusted EBITDA margin coming in at 18.9%. So again, very solid financial numbers for Celsius for fiscal year 2024. And then taking a look down at the bottom, they did highlight a couple of their other KPIs amongst the other energy drink and beverage companies. They have 5 total product lines: Core, Vibe Essentials, On-the-Go powders, and the hydration line. They are number 9 in terms of liquid refreshment beverage brand in the US. So we're not talking about just sugarless energy drinks or energy drinks in general. We are talking about liquid beverage company, liquid refreshment beverage. So that is huge. They have broken the top 10 barrier in terms of just overall beverages. And we will see a list of the other companies that are on that top 10 list on a future slide. And then number one on the growth brand in ready to go or ready to drink energy. So again, as they talked a lot about that accelerated growth that they had year over year, they have the number one growing brand still for fiscal year 2024. And then they have the $2.7 billion. That is in retail sales in the US. So that is massive. So the reason why there's a discrepancy between the retail sales and the revenue is there was some inventory optimization. So Pepsi was distributing some of their product to different shelves. So if you were to look at the retail scan data, you're seeing $2.7 billion in retail sales. That is huge. And that is why they are the top 10 in terms of liquid refreshment beverage company. And speaking of the top 10 liquid refreshment beverage company, take a look at some of these other companies that are on this list. Number one is Coca-Cola. That should not come as a surprise to anyone. And if you look at retail sales, let's just see exactly how far apart Celsius is from some of these top competitors. So Coca-Cola at 14.22 billion, Red Bull is number two at 8.37 billion. Followed by Gatorade at 7.68 billion and Monster at 6.33 billion, then Pepsi at 6.04, Dr. Pepper at 5.44, Mountain Dew at 5.15, Sprite at 3.62, and then Celsius. Again, we're talking about retail sales. They came in at 2.72 billion for fiscal year 24. What is more impressive is that retail sales year over year. So you can see as far as positive sales go, Coca-Cola's 0.63 sales change in terms of year over year, and this is in billions, so 0.63 billion. Red Bull came in at 0.41 billion. But take a look at who was number two on this entire list of liquid refreshment beverages. That would be Celsius. They came in at $0.49 billion of growth year over year in terms of retail sales. So number two of all liquid refreshment beverages, that is huge in my opinion. And then look at year founded. I think this is very interesting, very attractive considering the overall age of Celsius compared to some of these other top 10 competitors. Looking at Coke in the 1800s, Pepsi in the 1800s, and Dr. Pepper in the 1800s. And you're seeing a lot of mid to late 1900s. And then you see Celsius here in the 2000s. It is by far the youngest liquid refreshment beverage company in the top 10, just in front of Monster in 2002. So again, they are the youngest liquid refreshment beverage brand to make the top 10 list. And they are doing so coming in at number two on year over year growth. So they are still showcasing themselves as a very strong powerhouse in terms of market share growth and just overall market share in the US. And then at the bottom, before we move on, pay attention to the graph. It says 2020 through 2024. You can kind of see how they ranked. And you can see in 2020, they were 90th in this category, and they've jumped all the way to number 9 in 2024. So that is a very nice, solid growth, very aggressive, accelerated growth to reach that top 10 status. And then look at their sales. They continue to show very strong sales, coming in at 140 million in sales back in 2020. Now they're at 2.715 billion in sales. So huge numbers for Celsius. And taking a look at this brand acceleration, so really paying attention to some of their key operational highlights. They were founded back in 2004, launched internationally in 2009, really started trying to pay a lot of attention to their market strategies there in 2013, and then modernized their cans in 2017 with that white can appearance, which you can still see to their products today. Their Vibe line then launched in 2020. They then got into a distribution agreement with Pepsi in 2022, and they acquired Big Beverage Packing Company there in 2024. And then in 2025, we're only 2 months in, they've already launched a new innovative product, their hydration line, and then they announced this purchase agreement, this acquisition of Alani New. All right, and before we move along, I really want to talk about this specific slide, and let me provide you with a little bit of my reasoning. So there are some concerns that there could be some headwinds for the overall soda industry, for the candy industry, and really for the junk food industry. And that's a lot to do with the consumers becoming more health conscious, with RFK now part of the presidential office. There's just a lot of concerns of what that could mean for these specific businesses. And you have to recall, Celsius is unique in the way that it is sugarless, and it has a lot of these other key attributes that do not include high fructose corn syrup, no aspartame, no artificial colors or flavors, and very low sodium. They have essential vitamins. It's kosher, vegan, gluten-free, soy-free. So a lot of these boxes are being checked by Celsius in terms of what to avoid and what to add to try to increase that overall market share. And the last two items at the bottom right, this really has to do with those fitness enthusiasts. So you can see that this energy drink does accelerate metabolism. It also burns calories and body fat. So again, overall, great options here to try to get in touch with the fit lifestyle category. All right, and this slide is rather interesting as well. This one is not included in the investor presentation deck. This has to do with how sugar-free drinks have been growing year over year. So the gray graph is going to be your traditional sugar products, your sugar energy drinks, and then the orange, dark and light orange color is going to be your sugar-free category. And that darker orange color, that's going to be Celsius's market share in this sugar-free category. So you can see from 2020 through 2024, the sugar-free category has been outpacing in terms of growth the sugar option. And this slide is always great to show. On your left, you're going to see their increased sales year over year, and then you're going to see what that increase looks like in terms of growth. So you can see going from 140 million in 2020 all the way to 2.7 billion dollars in 2024. And then looking at it from a growth year over year, you can see they had a 4.3% growth in 2020. Now they're sitting at 30.3% growth for 2024 compared against to 2023. Now 2023 was a rather strong year for Celsius. They do talk about that in their investor call, but regardless, even with that in 2023, there's still additional growth in 2024. So that's just showing you that it has not become stagnant in terms of growth. There's still a lot of opportunities, still a lot of marketing. You're going to see a lot of branding opportunities for Celsius as you continue through this presentation. And as I mentioned, they do talk a lot about this growth strategy, these three key phrases: more people, more places, more often. More people meaning attracting new consumers into this energy category. This also helps when they have an acquisition such as Alani New. They're able to capture and pull those specific consumers under their umbrella. More places meaning really expanding the overall category to other retail locations as well as in other countries. And then more often, you're seeing a lot of repeat customers and really consumers that are getting larger quantities of these within the same period of time. And keying in on that more people side, you can see here that there's a couple of key points that they plan for 2025. So this is great. This is looking into some of the forward-looking opportunities for Celsius. First one is really their investment. They're investing strategically into this more people concept by focusing and maximizing on their return on investment. So they're looking to launch a new type of platform, this National Healthy Halo campaign in 2025. So again, that's going to be a great opportunity to drum up additional consumers that maybe haven't tried the Celsius brand yet. Another one is going to be this drill deep strategy through international expansion throughout 2025 and continued on. The next one's going to be this accelerated innovation pipeline to further drive category growth. So potentially some more flavors to come online, as well as maybe some more product. What other type of Celsius products outside of the hydration packets will we see in 2025? And then the last thing, bringing in entry point consumers to brand through continued execution on college and university programs. So again, brand awareness, trying to capture some of these new college students by really exposing them to the Celsius brand and the Celsius lifestyle. Getting into more places a little bit more, talking about increasing some of that shelf space and cold presence and some of their retail channels, food service, lodging, restaurants. So again, really trying to target some of those promotional shelving opportunities as well as display cases, and then really getting in a little bit more into the e-commerce. So they already have a good presence there on Amazon, but really looking at some of these other e-commerce opportunities and how to really promote that online. And the last one, some people were asking on the investor call, what does the relationship with Pepsi look like? And in this presentation, you can see that they are planning to continue their presence and enhancing their distribution partnership with Pepsi. So I expect a further and larger partnership with Pepsi as their main distributor. And more often, they talked a little bit about this category. I will go ahead and give you a little hint on it. They talked about it during the earnings call. They will be getting into the Subway franchise. So they're looking to add this Celsius energy drink alongside food, which is something a little bit different than you normally would see. You normally see one of these drinks just be taken on the go, whether driving or whether heading to an event or something of that nature, but now really sitting down and enjoying it with a meal. And the last one on here, expanding into adjacent categories and accelerate our commitment to becoming a part of the consumer's daily routines. So I think that's rather interesting. So outside of just having a drink on the go, they're really looking at what other types of opportunities, maybe outside of the liquid refreshment beverage category, can Celsius actually take part of for consumers' daily routines. So is this going to be a snack option or opportunity, or is it going to be some other type of consumption product outside of just liquid beverage? And a big portion of this investor deck, along with the quarterly financials, is going to be this acquisition of Alani Nu. So we're going to go into a lot of details talking about some of the financials behind them and then some of the other rationale as we continue on. So taking a closer look at Alani Nu, what all they offer and why Celsius decided to pull the trigger and put out a purchase agreement with them. So the first thing is really looking at their overall growth as an energy drink company. They had 595 million of net sales in 2024, and they had about a 50% growth in category from 2022 to through 2024. And number two here, they talk a little bit about some of the profit and profit margins for Alani Nu. You can see that about $137 million in profit in 2024, which came out to about 23% margin. So again, it's not a terrible margin. Looking at Celsius, they had about a 50% margin in terms of cost of sales. So again, leveraging some of their beverage packaging companies, as well as some of their other raw material purchases, so they may be able to get some additional bulk of volume. I could see some of the cost of goods sold going down for Alani Nu product line. And then recall they do have a rather large and robust sales team for Celsius. So the Alani Nu product is now going to be able to be part of that sales practice and sales pitch. So again, they're going to be able to synergize amongst that, and that's going to help really increase the profit margins for Alani Nu, in my opinion. And the third item here, unique consumer base incremental to category. So they have an approachable brand, and they mentioned 92% are females of their social media following. So they did a quick deep dive on their followers. And then outside of that, they had about 49% repeat buyers. So they have a very steady, a very loyal brand following as well from their female followers. And then the last category is really this health and wellness functional lifestyle. So they have a rather nice, robust portfolio of different product offerings. You can see they have their energy drink category. They have their pre-workout. They have these stick packs as well, as we saw Celsius having their hydration packs. They also offer shakes and then snacks. So they have a rather robust, a rather well-rounded product offering for their consumer base. So what does that synergy look like? Here is a great slide to kind of break that down high level. You can see that combining both Alani Nu and Celsius together, we're talking about a $2 billion sales platform. And remember that Celsius was already in the top 10 on liquid refreshment beverages. So by all means, they are going to be up there still in 2025, especially with the acquisition of Alani Nu. And then from a category share standpoint, they will expect an accretive growth. They're going to get a total now of 16% of the overall market category. And then it is by far one of the fastest growing portfolios of scale when you combine both Celsius and Alani Nu. So I do expect to see additional revenue growth in this specific with this specific acquisition, as well as some increased profit margins for Alani Nu. And let's get into a little bit more of the details behind that $2 billion sale number. You can see here, looking at the year-over-year growth, looking at Celsius in 2024 in millions, they had $489 million in retail sales growth year over year, compared to Red Bull at $409 million. So again, if you combine Celsius and Alani together, they are by far, they're making about 50% of the overall energy drink category growth for fiscal year 2024. So I'm very much interested to see, as they continue to saturate international markets and as they continue to build their brand awareness, just how much higher can Celsius and Alani Nu go in terms of growth in this category. And then combining the two together, their pro forma position in terms of market share is going to be 16% when compared to the rest of this category. And then the last one's really this scaled platform to continue to disrupt the category. So again, we talked about that. They're now the 92% female energy drink Alani Nu is going to have opportunity to distribute on a very large scale with Celsius, really getting into additional retail markets as well as international markets. And then looking on the right-hand side, some of the long-term tailwinds for the energy category. The energy category is seeing about $90 billion sales in 2024. And then looking over, they have an expected 10% compounded annual growth rate expected for this energy drink category going from 2024 through 2029. So a very nice, consistent 5-year growth still expected in this energy drink category. And then looking down the bottom right of this quadrant, you can see 37% of U.S. household penetration with significant upside. So there's still quite a bit of household market opportunities here for this energy drink category. And then going down to sugar-free specific, taking a look at that, you can see in 2020, it only made up about 39% of the overall category. And in 2024, it has outpaced the traditional sugar category. And you can see overall that it now makes up 51% of the overall energy drink category, comparing sugar-free with sugar. This next section is really going to be more focused on the marketing side of it. You can see here, just jumping straight down into the Celsius consumers. You can see here, they call themselves Generation C. I think it stands for Generation Celsius, but it's a rather balanced group between 54% female and 46% male. Really looking at the millennials and Gen Z making up a rather large portion of this category. And then the household income, we're seeing about 10 points higher on the household income compared to other categories. So again, a lot of these millennials and Gen Z happen to have a little bit more annual income, which means they have a little bit more to spend, which is why we're still seeing a steady growth in this category, while some of the other sectors tend to see some slowdowns depending on the overall financial markets. And here's another great marketing one, comparing Celsius with Red Bull and with Monster. You can see from a repeat buyer standpoint, they see about 2.5 million repeat buyers, well outpacing Red Bull and Monster. And then trips per buyer, you can see about 7% increase on trips per buyer when you look at the Celsius brand compared to these two. And then the last one be exclusive households. So really the loyal households that are constantly buying their product, you're seeing about 3% of those compared to negative growth in both Red Bull and Monster. And again, they talk a little bit more about these Gen Zers and these millennials and exactly what their population looks like from a buying standpoint. You can see this is really the monthly trends, and you can see an increase in monthly trend scan data for these individuals, for this Celsius consumer sector. And again, these are being done, I'm assuming, by a poll situation, because individual buyers are not necessarily providing their ages whenever they're making their purchases, but I think this is a rather interesting snapshot. And from an opportunity to increase brand awareness, you can see how Celsius compares with some of these competitors. So a lot of these competitors are still well known compared to Celsius overall. So again, taking part in some of these larger activities, such as NASCAR, such as that Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, these are opportunities to really get the brand name out globally. And they talk a little bit about how this is not going to be any type of cannibalism in terms of market share takeover, but instead, really, it's a complementive market share when you look at the targeted audience as well as exactly what they offer for flavor innovation and the overall aesthetic. So you can see here on the left, it's more of a gender neutral in terms of the Celsius brand, whereas Alani Nu is highly targeted for the female audience. And you can see, again, we're talking Celsius brand positioning, really going over athletes and fitness, whereas brand positioning for Alani Nu is mostly has to do with empowerment and wellness for the younger women. So again, not so much about working out, but just trying to be a little bit more healthy in your drink options. And another thing, they talked a little bit about that more often, and they just gave a couple examples of what that would look like. You can see here they have some of these other consumer companies offering different food, whether it be pizza, hot dogs, tacos, or things of that nature. Again, trying to show that you could have one of these Celsius energy drinks or Alani Nu energy drink while you're eating those specific items. And let's talk a little bit about operational excellence. How can they continue to increase those margins when it comes to that cost of goods sold compared to revenue? First one's really going to be how they were able to boost their innovation by acquiring that big beverage company back in November of 2024. Again, that allows them to put together some seasonal offerings or try some limited edition products, really just testing out some of the flavor innovations for their different product lines before having to commit on a much larger scale. And then just a couple other items here. They did create a center of excellence from a global marketing standpoint that really would help in terms of global procurement and supply chain optimization there for Celsius brand. So again, this is another great way that they are trying to take a best practice approach internationally. And let's take a little bit of a closer look on these key transaction terms of the Celsius and Alani Nu. So you can see here, first one is going to be this attractive valuation. You can see here that the Alani Nu sales price was just 3 times their 2024 revenue. So from a return on investment on a revenue standpoint, Alani Nu will have already given it back to Celsius. So this is happening by middle of 2025. So by the middle of 2028, that revenue amount, that return on investment in terms of accretive revenue growth would have already taken place for Alani Nu. And then taking a look at the fully synergized, they're looking at about a 12x. And the second item is going to be the shareholder alignment. So this has to do with part of the transaction was share-based. It was not fully cash. So how do they protect the current shareholders to make sure that their interest is also being served? And that is by the lockup agreement. So the sellers of Alani Nu, they did receive a certain amount of shares of Celsius as part of this transaction. However, those shares are locked up. They cannot sell any of those shares for at least 12 months. And then they will be able to share a third of those overall shares after 12. And then at 18 months, they will be able to sell another third. And then finally, they could sell the remaining at the 24-month date. And these other two items we're going to talk about in this next slide here. So looking at the EPS, this accretive 1-year growth with synergy opportunities, starting on the left, look at this increase in top line sales. We already talked about this. Celsius as a single company had about $1.4 billion in sales. Adding Alani Nu in here, now they're going to be at $2 billion sales. And then jumping over to the pro forma profitability, you can see Celsius was already profitable at $256 million, which is about 19% after adjusting for EBITDA. And with Alani Nu getting added in, you can see an increase in profitability up to 20%. And that actually comes out to about $393 million in terms of profit. And then jumping over to the right, let's talk about this quadrant here. You can see they've already identified about $50 million of opportunity just by the synergy. So thinking about combining their marketing strategies, their sales strategies, their some of their distribution opportunities. There's already a lot of opportunities here when you combine two different companies to reduce some of the redundancies. And moving over to the top right, you can see that the cash EPS will be accretive in just 1 year. And then at the bottom left of this quad, you can see that they do anticipate some accretive top line growth, which they do show in that left bar graph going from 1.4 to 2.0 billion. And the bottom corner, this is going to be significant cash flow generation. So you can already see there from an adjusted EBITDA standpoint, having the 256 million in profit, increasing that number all the way to 393 million in profit once you add Alani New. So that is a very nice amount of free cash flow coming in. Now, of course, you do have some other non-cost of goods sold line items that you do have to pay for, but this is adding a rather healthy amount of revenue, profit that can be used to help compensate for those items. So really overall providing some additional cash flow. And what are they going to do with that cash? They talk about this maintaining a disciplined capital allocation. So the first thing, they're going to continue to invest to fuel organic growth. So this is going to be increasing that brand awareness, strategically placing their product on shelves and display cases at different retailers, and then really just capitalizing on their expertise and how they've been able to sustain growth so far. The second one is really just maintaining that strong balance sheet, as they already showed how they're going to be able to increase the overall profit and then even some profit percentage there. And then talking a little bit about that strong cash flow management with a goal of reducing some of that leverage. So the third item is really going to be opportunistic merger and acquisitions. So again, they're going to continue evaluating other opportunities to be able to add to their portfolio and continue to chew away at the remaining market share for the sugar-free energy category. And these are some other name brands that were dropped during the earnings call. 7-Eleven was already one of their retail sales distributors. However, they did get announced as the 2024 7-Eleven Immediate Consumption Execution Award winner. So that was a rather impressive feat for Celsius Holdings to come out on top in that category. And then the second one, this was interesting. They are actually in the Home Depot category now. They gained distribution into this category, and this is a non-traditional type of customer for Home Depot. And then the last one, this is new information. This has not been put out in a press release. This was just shared during the earnings event. But starting in March, they have opportunity to join Subway and offer their Celsius products in their brick and mortar stores, and there is an opportunity of about 18,000 stores nationwide. All right, and that about wraps it up for me, folks. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown of this latest investor presentation for Celsius Holdings and now Alani New. If you did like this video, consider giving it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment. What is your thoughts on Celsius Holdings, this beverage company, as well as Alani New? What do you think about this purchase agreement, this acquisition of Alani New into Celsius brand? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. And with that said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you on the next one.